I am the Philosophical Bachelor, and today I want to talk about primitivism as a social movement. The following is a work of theory fiction, a text I prepared for a fictitious conference which is upcoming in March and April this year. It isn't quite my own personal position, so defending primitivism was challenging, but also made me reconsider my own stance. Anyway, here it is. Memorandum tabled by the Sovereign Nation of Primitivism for the consideration of the Congress. Encomium to Primitivism. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It is difficult to resist feeling proud when we consider how far humankind has come. It took only a brief 66 years from the first lighter-than-air flight to the first man landing on the moon. This is barely a blink of an eye, considering that our earliest known ancestors, Sahelanthropus, emerged some 6 million years ago walking on all fours. The earliest use of stone tools is estimated at 3.3 million years ago. It took another 2.9 million years before we had spears. Millions of years have to elapse before we have gunpowder, invented in China just about 1,100 years ago. We used to be at the mercy of nature, but for some time now, we have developed the ability to not just bend nature to our will, but to exploit it at will, a veritable neo-colonization of the elements. The age of the Anthropocene has dawned, and we ride high over all of nature in large part due to our technological prowess. The progress of humanity seems to be bound up with our progress in technology, but this is a false equivalence that primitivists would contest. It is far more difficult to argue that what humankind needs now is not a further acceleration of technological development, but rather the opposite. We need to slow it down. If we succeed, it may perhaps be the first time in human history where we deliberately apply the brakes. Setbacks to technological development have happened before, but it has always resumed, faster and stronger than ever. We, the representatives of the Nation of Primitivism, argue that not only does humankind need to slow down our technological development, perhaps even stop altogether in our tracks and go backwards, but we need to do so on a permanent basis. Even if we are happy to give up the profits from industry, the hardest part of our mission may be to deny humankind her swagger from what has been achieved technologically so far and the impetus to push ever forward, but it is imperative that we do so. We shall present our arguments in two parts. First, we shall negatively critique the notion of progress. Karl Marx has been prescient in noting that the ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. Today, this idea is one of techno-optimism. 8 of the 10 richest people in the world made their money through technology, ranging from software like Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, and Larry Ballmer, space like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and electric terrestrial vehicles like Elon Musk, internet-related technologies, Bezos, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, to mobile telecommunications like Carlos Slim. When the recent COVID-19 pandemic broke out, instead of addressing the root cause, which still remains in question even today, the instinct of many governments was to look towards technology for solutions, with a proliferation of personal protective equipment, vaccines, and smartphone apps to track people's movements. People have come to take for granted the sense of triumph that accompanies technological achievement, making it important, even necessary, for us all to be brought down to earth to resist technology's siren call. In part 1 of our polemic, before we embark on the second part, where we will present a positive thesis and spell out the advantages that we as humankind must seek in the primitivist movement. Part 1. Icarus. The logic of the Hegelian and Marxian dialectical movement seems almost to condemn us to progress. In G.W.F. Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, humankind wends its way like a cable car through 5 stations: consciousness, self-consciousness, reason, spirit, and finally absolute spirit. Progress seems teleologically destined, the way a moth cannot help but be attracted to a flame. Even reversals faced by the human species, such as wars, plagues, natural disasters, and tyrannies, are just minor setbacks, indeed opportunities, along the path to the destination where our becoming culminates in being, where concept corresponds with its object, where knowledge becomes certain, where capital T truth finally prevails. While there is a certain elegance and romance in his theory, Hegel's triumphalist posture is premature since there is no guarantee that we will get there. Just as there is a promise in every seed to reach its fruition, promises can be betrayed, life can be snuffed out. Dialectics implicitly assumes that there are conscious beings conducting the discourse that makes possible the negation, preservation, and raising up of the process of sublation. If there are no more conscious beings thanks to, for instance, a nuclear apocalypse or runaway climate conditions, would not the dialectical movement be terminated? Like a car racing towards a cliff's edge, we can step on the accelerator in the hope that we develop enough momentum to make the leap into a hopefully glorious but in reality uncertain unknown, or we can pump the brakes in the hope of slowing down before we run out of road. Could we perhaps even go into reverse, to reclaim, to rebuild, to create a new way? Or are we past the point of no return, where the flames that burn since Prometheus gave us fire from heaven are raging higher and higher, too strong to ever be put out by us? The second law of thermodynamics tells us that the entropy of the universe as a closed system is ever increasing. A law of nature, its consequences are supposed to be inevitable, but quite the contrary, we do not see more chaos even in the face of increasing complexity, because we, as conscious beings, can bring order to organize, manage, and control both nature and the products of our artifice. We have the ability to do so, but we can also fail to do so. If we can and should, and yet do not, is this not then a dereliction of moral responsibility? The honorable representatives from the nation of accelerationism may agree with us on the need to take responsibility, though our solutions differ. Their fix for the problems that technology has brought us, such as climate change, increased stress, anxiety, depression, and mental illness in the population, is more technology. It is like solving the gun problem in America with more guns. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, Einstein purportedly said. Have we not been too optimistic in every cycle of the next big thing? Too dazzled and seduced by their hypnotically shiny bells and whistles to hear the whispers of caution that should have given us pause? Is our essential condition as human beings to be homo faber or man as maker? Have we not learned already the lesson of climate change, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions? What if the intentions were neither good nor bad, but simply one of grim profit-seeking? Is the capitalistic motivation an invisible hand that relegates all values to the marketplace, or the force behind uncompensated externalities that overwhelm economic surpluses and destroys the commons, since the commons do not have a price, and hence in capitalism is worth nothing, when it is in fact what is invaluable? Are we the kind of people who, in the immortal words of Oscar Wilde, knows the price of everything and the value of nothing? Shouldn't the precautionary principle be the guiding principle for our approach to the development of new technologies? It is founded on sober pessimistic meta-induction from our previous failures rather than unfounded optimism in future promises that may not bear out or be plain underwhelming when fulfilled. Even if technological development is in our blood, should we not do so responsibly to ensure the continuance of future generations, so that humankind in the form of these future generations may continue to make well-considered technological advances? Has the current generation the right to stake the lives of the yet-to-be born on imprudent bets? It is a question of intergenerational justice, which we, the present generation, answer for all future generations. They will reap what we have sown. Part 2. Walden. Henry David Thoreau tells us to simplify, and we have adopted this wisdom as our motto of the Nation of Primitivism. How can we depart from the techno-scientific hegemony of our times? Recalibrating our understanding of the use of technology to what simply makes sense is an obvious first step. To do so, we need to ask, what is technology for? Is it not to serve us? Thus, insert new technology, truly serve our collective interests or only the narrow interests of the political and or technopreneur elite? An aim of primitivism is for people to become more fully human instead of being forced to become more machine-like, where we use tools to empower ourselves and not become tools to be made use of. According to Jean Zerzan, anthropological and archaeological evidence of pre-Neolithic times when people were hunter-gatherers suggests that before the advent of technology during the agricultural revolution 12,000 years ago, people had more free time, a more egalitarian way of life, an ethos of sharing, and no signs of organized violence. They were not alienated by the products of their labor, closer to Jean-Jacques Rousseau's State of Nature, where people roamed free, flourishing and frolicking, and not the commonly accepted account of a Hobbesian state, where life was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Historian Yuval Noah Harari called the agricultural revolution history's biggest fraud. Instead of having an easier life during this time, the average farmer worked harder than the average forager and got a worse diet in return. Some communities declined to become farmers, remaining as nomads, which suggests that there is no ontological necessity, no categorical imperative that humankind had to go down the path that finally led us to become a technological society. Nonetheless, there is no going back. The forbidden fruit has been eaten, our innocence has been lost, and we are forevermore cast out of paradise. We can only move forward, but what the future looks like is something we can still decide. Neo-primitivists like Gavin Muller suggests a return, not to a lost or mythical state of nature, but perhaps to a level of material output from some decades earlier than today. Naturally, what primitivists have to offer are not solutions in the form of a technological roadmap of machines we have to invent to lead us to the promised land, but a political project of how we can degrow. Muller is a Marxist and hence his ideas focus on the workers of the world. He proposes that workers need to regain their autonomy, to be free to decide how to conduct their lives and perform their work with the ability to set standards and improve their working conditions. When we carefully consider technology's relationship to the labor process and working conditions, we will reject production for production's sake. Efficiency will be merely one among many values in our manufacturing practice and not the overriding value the way it seems to be today. Reforms against the worst tendencies in technological development will need to be implemented to alleviate the effects of the erosion of stable jobs, the use of digital technologies to proliferate work tasks, and technology's intrusion into our leisure time. Muller believes that the more fundamental problem of technology is its role in the reproduction of hierarchies and injustices foisted upon most of us by business owners, bosses, and governments. In other words, the problem of technology is its role in capitalism. Technology has led to a greater concentration of wealth, giving the technopreneurial elites more power to exploit workers and interfere with states and politics through their lobbies and political donation. A more democratic engagement is needed. The COVID-19 crisis has brought into sharp relief what constitutes essential work. They surround the work behind food and agriculture, grocery stores, first responders, medical services, transport, basic banking services, education, and critical manufacturing. These give us an idea of what is the kind of work needed to keep societies functioning. No one at that time needed the next iteration of the iPhone. We should not forget about our essential workers now that the crisis has subsided. We need to advocate for them and elevate care professions such as nursing and teaching, rewarding them better while rewarding technopreneurs and their ilk less. Human flourishing is the focus of primitivist politics. We need not throw out the proverbial baby with the bathwater, but we can certainly be more selective of what technological developments to pursue based on our collective vision of what we want our world to look like, instead of leaving it to the economic marketplace and disruptive innovators who are profit-driven and may have less salutary aims than our collective well-being. We should de-emphasize commercial imperatives and adopt slower, less intensive, less estranged, more social methods of meeting our needs. It is instructive to look to how one group has actually done it. The Amish community is commonly thought to reject technology wholesale, but that is a misconception. To begin with, even artifacts they use, such as horse-drawn carriages, clothing, and spectacles, are technology. But more to the point, the Amish are cautious and deliberate in selecting which technologies to adopt. They consider how the prospective technologies fit into their way of life and if and how it will change them as individuals and as a people. We should emulate this cautious approach. However, there are limits to how lessons from the Amish could translate to the world at large. The Amish community is small and close-knit, and hence can conduct town hall meetings to discuss what they should do. They can select from what is available outside of their community. The ambition of the Primitivist project is to cover all the peoples of the earth, since the efforts of the entire world are required to tackle global issues such as climate change through degrowth. In that case, we cannot select what technologies are desirable from what is on offer from the outside world, since there is no outside to speak of. We form one global village, and moreover, the pursuit of capitalism and the proliferation of technology are today global in nature. However, we can certainly emulate the Amish in adopting a more deliberate and responsible approach to what new technologies should be developed and what should not leave the drawing board. Instead of disruptive innovation being the cause célèbre, attracting the most investments, we should invest in the maintenance and repair of existing infrastructure and technologies, since most technologies are old and require upkeep to ensure smooth functioning. The project of degrowth attacks today's dominant narrative, espousing an ideology of economic growth as the mark of success between nations. GDP and its derivatives are inadequate as indicators to capture the state of our humanity. We need to develop new measures for environmental sustainability and human flourishing and devote our collective efforts to furthering both aims. After all, isn't the basic reason why we gather in societies to sustain our lives and to develop our humanity?